Hello class, welcome to week 8 of Windows Administration. So for this week, we are gonna deal with storage. So I'm sure you guys are familiar, you guys all probably have or have used a computer, a iPad, or just a tablet in general. I'm sure you guys all have your own smartphones. All of these devices, while they are powered using either a chip or a processor, um, all that information that you're putting on those devices is put in storage. And these storage options can range from a hard drive, from a SSD drive, to virtual storage, as in like a virtual hard disk. It can be put in a bunch of different ways, or different locations. But at the end of the day, it's a storage location. So like if you guys were to move houses, or maybe you guys have like these like storage cubes. I know those are pretty popular. It's the same concept. So like when you have a lot of information and perhaps it's like overflowing, you try to store them in certain areas where it's accessible if you need it, but if you don't need it, you just kind of leave it there. So that's kind of the concept of what we're doing this week. So this lab itself is called Managing Local Storage. So what they mean by local storage, it means storage that currently exists on the device you're on. So like right now, I am on plab DC01. So say this was an actual, like in this environment, it's the domain controller. So the domain controller is in charge of like being like the head of all other machines on this domain. But say this domain controller was a physical machine and not virtual as it currently is. Say it was a physical machine and we were inside of our company, and this machine had physical storage like an SSD or maybe like this huge hard drive inside of it. When they say local storage, they mean that storage that exists inside of this domain controller, which is really just a server. So the server that exists physically inside of this server, the storage that exists physically inside of this server is what they refer to as local storage. Local storage can also refer to not just storage on a device specifically, or it could be like the storage on a network. So like some networks might have specific areas segmented in their network that where just like all the servers exist, or it could be like a SAN, so storage area network. It could just be a part of the network that has all company data stored there. That can also be referred to as local storage because even though it doesn't pertain to one device, it pertains to data that exists locally for that company building. So now when we get to virtual hard disks, that just means like we have, I believe in a previous lab, we have kind of gone through creating, what was it, Hyper-V machines in our environment. So those Hyper-V machines also, since they acted as servers when we set them up, like we went to, I believe it was like tools, and then we went to, let me see if I can find Hyper-V. It may have been on a different machine. It may have been on the second machine. Um, uh, if I get to it in a later step where it requires me to turn on the second machine, I'll check to see if it's there. But the point is, Hyper-V also requires storage because it's acting as a pseudo server, or it could be like a pseudo user computer. So just because it's a virtualized computer or virtualized server doesn't mean it doesn't also require storage to store data, including the operating system. So the operating system in Windows, in Apple devices, all that stuff, the operating system has to be stored somewhere on the device. So say you have like 32 gig or 64 gigs of storage on your phone. Your phone's operating system is going to take maybe 10 gigs or 8, depending. It does vary. Um, and that's even though when they sell it to you, they say you get 64 gigs. You don't actually get 64, you get less than that because it doesn't matter if you don't download any apps or anything, the operating system will eat some of that storage. So that's why when you buy any device, it is recommended that you kind of take into account how much storage you might actually need, um, like, and consider like your say your current phone you might be using 32 gigs, so just like keep that in. It's something you want to keep in mind when you buy a new device, and especially now that there's more apps available, there's more stuff that people like photos that you want to store on your phone. This just increases the necessity for more storage. And I say this not to give you advice on buying a new phone, but to give you the mindset that a lot of these companies have when they upgrade their devices, whether they upgrade servers, whether they upgrade end user devices. This is all stuff that has to be considered. What are typical workers putting on their machines? What kind of software do they need to complete their daily task? How heavy is the software? Does the software require any new updates to it? And if so, how much larger does the program become when it does get updated? So it's all stuff that companies have to consider, and you as a network administrator also has to consider. And a lot of times, the CEO or whatever manager, if they're not technical, they may just go with something that they might just say like, oh, the cheapest option. But you being the network administrator, you know that it's not ideal to give users the bare minimum of storage that they need. Because what happens when you do that, and same when you give the bare minimum of RAM or memory, like computer memory, is that the machine will operate um, at a performance level that at its max performance level because you gave it specs that is enough to complete the task, but just barely enough. So the computer is almost maxing out on storage space and RAM space. So you never want to do that because all it takes is for the user to maybe store some emails locally or maybe install a program that is allowed in the company, but takes up additional space that was never accounted for on that computer, so that computer ends up uh, throttling itself. So that's never good. So the point of this, I did ramble on a little bit. The point of this is to show the importance of storage for servers, in this case for servers, especially on a network. If you think a server, say it's like a web server, if you think, or no, say it's like a server that stores user data, like say you're a finance company and you are constantly collecting new clients' data, current clients, their data expands over time, so you're collecting a lot of sensitive data. So you want to make sure that it's not only being stored on one device, it's being stored across many devices, but not just that. You want to make sure each device has more than enough room to be able to take in all that data. And then obviously there's other ways of load managing that data, which we may get into on this lab, or maybe not. And it's just all stuff to consider. So that's really all this chapter is. It's managing local storage and managing virtual storage. So let's get into it. So I am on page 3 of 5. This is task 1. So far it says we're just going to deal with the domain controller, which is the machine we're on, and PLAB DMO1, which is that second machine on the list, but we'll get there when we get there. So step 1, they want us to ensure that you have powered on the required devices. I'll turn that on later. So they want us to connect to PLAB DC or DMO1. Okay, so okay, they do want me to connect to it. Okay, so I will. It should take a second for it to turn on, and once it turns on, it says Server Manager Dashboard will open up, and then they want us to get into PowerShell. Okay, looks like it turned on. Just gonna click on it. Alright, so they okay, they want us to use the search bar for whatever reason. This is the third way of finding PowerShell. I mean, I guess they just want you to be familiar with different ways of accessing PowerShell. It's nothing different than if I were to right click this. It's nothing different if I were to just go to Tools right here and go to PowerShell. They just want to, I guess, teach you different ways. Here's PowerShell. So I guess I'll do it their way. No harm done. Get that open. Select it in the best match pop-up window. Right click PowerShell and select run. Oh, they want us to run it as administrator. Okay. So I'm just gonna right click it, run as administrator. Great. So step 3. They want us to type this command, which is really just going to get us a list of available disks that are offline. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to do my clipboard method. I just find it easier. So just press send once and then immediately right click the PowerShell window. Okay, didn't work. Press send twice. Okay, so press send twice and then right click the PowerShell window. Press enter. It should give me a list. And okay, so all 3 of these are offline. They're healthy. The storage size of each partition is 50 gigs. So what, if you guys are not familiar with what a partition is really just a section of a hard drive, or like a storage, yes, hard drive. When I say hard drive, I mean storage option. Yeah, hard drives are like the old school term, and those are usually what a hard drive actually is. It's like those brick, not brick. Well, they're a little bit skinnier now, but they're like the metal, physical, like rectangular things that you see inside of old laptops or even computers. Now people are shifting towards solid state drives, which don't have the rotating disk inside of them. So it is a bit faster in that way and doesn't break as easily, usually lasts longer. Um, and obviously, like the speed of, I guess, getting the data from the drive is much faster with an SSD. But here, even though it says, actually it doesn't say hard drive, but up here in step 3, I believe it said hard drive somewhere. What was it, step 2? It was somewhere in here. Um, we don't know what they are. We just know that they're healthy and they have 50 gigs. That partition, or no, no, no. Total size, no, 50 gigs for the entire drive itself. The partition style is GPT. Okay, yeah, yeah. Um, so that's what this is. Let's go to, I typed this in, so let's type in this. So this is gonna, on the next prompt, you will change the status of disk 3 to online. Okay. So I'm just gonna copy this in, press it twice, right click, okay. Alright, nothing happens, but it should have turned partition or disk 3 on, or number 3, so the second one. Did not give a successful confirmation after setting disk 3 to online. Now we're going to turn off the read-only attribute on disk 3 by entering this command. Okay. So step 6, disk number 3's read-only attribute has been successfully turned off. On the next prompt, to get information about disk number 3, which is the second one, type this. Okay. Alright, so it's basically like, instead of getting the whole list of all the devices, now I just have disk 3, which is here. So it's on, before it was offline. This is the same, and this is the same. The serial number they don't give us. As far as the read-only part, there was no header for that, so even though we changed it, we turned off read-only, it doesn't show here, which is fine. Okay, so that's step 6. So step 7 displays information about disk number 3. On the next prompt, you will create an REFS volume by using up all available disk space on disk number 3. Type the following command. Okay, so we had 50 gigs on disk 3, but now we're going to use it, all of it, apparently. So just press this command, press enter. Something's happening up here. It's formatting the hard drive, and now we've got, okay, so the hard drive letter is F. It's plabs test, which is the name. REFS file system. Drive type is fixed. It's still healthy. Operation is okay. Size remaining, we have 48.68 gigs. Size 49.94. Okay. Please wait while new partition. Will display information about the newly created. Okay. They want us to close it. Okay, we'll close it for now. It was created. And then what is... You need to format the disk. To verify the newly created partition, click File Explorer. I don't think it's gonna let me click File Explorer. Okay, it does. So F is here. On the File Explorer window, under this PC node, click plabs test F. It's currently empty at the moment. Close. I'm gonna close this for now. Okay. Because we already, yes, we turned on, well, that message may have been from when we initially turned on that hard drive and it wanted us to format it. But when we did format it in PowerShell, which was assigning some data to the hard drive, that's why I feel like it wasn't necessary. I was confused because I was like, this isn't necessary since we already did it in PowerShell. So that's why I closed it. It looks fine. So task 2, creating a mirrored disk volume. So they want us to go to, no, they want us to stay here. Okay, so plab demo1, which is where we're currently sitting at. The server manager dashboard, they want us to go to tools, computer management, which is up here. So we'll wait for that to open. So on the computer management window, on the left pane, click storage. So storage is right here, and then they want us to click disk management, which is right here. Step 3, you will be using disk 2. So disk 2 is here. Okay. As the target disk of the mirrored volume, right-click disk 2 and select online. Okay. So step 4, on disk 0, right-click C drive and then select add mirror. Oh, the C drive right here. Add mirror, and select disk 2 from the list, click add mirror. So on step 6, the disk management message box indicates that the selected basic disk will be converted to dynamic disk. Click yes. So step 7, there will be a momentary pause as the basic disk converts to dynamic disk type. After a few seconds, the mirrored volume C will be created between disk 0 and 1. Okay, so it's just copying over the C drive from disk 0 to 2. And we can go to step, I don't believe there's anything else on step 7. It says it'll take a couple minutes. Okay, so step 8. The mirrored volume C, the C drive, where the Windows operating system is installed, is now fault tolerant as a replica, and it's been successfully created in disk 1 C drive. When was it created? Hmm. But we replicated it on disk 2, so I'm not sure if they're just misspeaking. It was never put on disk 1. We'll just continue. Keep the computer management window open. So we'll go to step 3. We'll leave this as is, um, or task 3. So step 1, ensure you are connected to PLAB DMO1. Computer management window is open. On the middle pane, scroll down the list and find disk 4. Okay, so it's currently off. So they want us to turn it on, and then after setting disk 4 to online, scroll up a bit and locate disk 1. Okay, so this is where we're using disk 1. So right click disk 2's unallocated partition and select new RAID 5 volume. Okay. So now we get the RAID 5 volume wizard. They want us to click next. For select disk, they want us to click on disk 0, and then they want us to do add. Disk 0 is now under the selected section, which it is on the right hand side. Then they want us to select disk 4 and also add that. So we have 3 disks on the right hand side that we're selecting for RAID 5. So step 6, under the selected section, disk 0, 2, and 4 have been added. They're all using a common volume size. Do they want us to hit next? No, not yet. Okay, so for step 7, click on the select the amount of space in MB spin box and type over the value with the following. So they want us to change this first one, or no, the second one, to 3000. Oh, no, the third one. So let's change this to, just type 3000. Okay. You will notice the values will change accordingly in disk 0, 2, and 4. Now we click next. So step 8, on the assign drive letter or path page, change the following drive letter drop-down list to drive S. Okay. And then we're going to click next. And now we're on formatting the volume. So for the format volume page, click in the volume label text box. Oh, this, okay. And type over the existing entry with the following. So it's going to be RAID-5. And perform a quick format and click next. And then here we could just click finish. And then we get this message. The disk management message box appears indicating that the basic disk will be converted to dynamic disk. And they say just press yes for this. So step 12, there will be a momentary pause as the other disks are converted into dynamic disk types. So now for disk 0, 2, and I believe there's another one, 4, now we get, I believe these were the ones, no, this is the one that we mirrored, disk C, and then we had some unallocated space on disk 2, but now we're using some of that for our RAID 5. That's the name of that volume on the storage device, and that specific volume is represented by drive letter S, and it has almost 3 gigs of space, and it says it's healthy. Same for disk 4, it's also volume S, about 3 gigs, also named RAID 5, and same for disk 0. So it looks like it finished with all of that. So step 13, they just want you to scroll through the list to make sure it was successfully created. So that's it for task 3. So now they want us to keep this open still. So now we can go to task 4, which is creating a stripped volume, because we still have unallocated space on a lot of these disks. So I'm sure that's what we're going to be using now. So step 1, Same machine, PLAB DMO1, computer management window is still open. They want us to right click on disk 2's unallocated portion and choose new stripped volume. So I'm just going to right click here, do new stripped volume. I get another wizard. I'm just going to hit next first. So it looks like they want you to move the available disk to the selected disk. So the first one's going to be disk 4. We're just going to do add. And then the second one is going to be, notice the change in size of disk 4. Okay. Oh, it looks like only disk 4 is the one that they want us to add, not disk 0. Okay, that's fine. So actually, do they want us to change the space? Notice the change in size of disk 4. Click next. Okay, they don't want us to touch this, so we'll just leave it as is. So for drive letter, they want us to use the letter H. And click next. And then for the name of the volume, they want us to name it RAID hyphen 0. And then do they want us to do perform? They don't. Oh yeah, perform quick format. And we'll hit next. And I'll do finish. Alright, so now that should create the stripped volume on disk 2. And it did, because now we have RAID 0, and it actually did it on disk 4, because I believe that, no, disk 2 originally had it on the selected list. Disk 4 is the one we added. So that's why we have RAID hyphen 0 drive letter H with about 7.5 gigs for that partition on that storage drive. So we basically created two partitions, RAID 0 and RAID 5, and the C drive, which stores the operating system on disk 0, was simply mirrored onto disk 2. That's essentially all we did. And when we created those two partitions of RAID 5 and RAID 0, we created them across multiple disks. So like, just so that it's redundant in case one storage device ends up becoming corrupted or encrypted, we don't lose access to that data. The data still exists on different storage devices. That's the whole point of RAID. So that's that. So that's step 7. So step 8 was, as earlier steps, please wait. Okay. Step 9, they just, okay, and take a screenshot. So I am going to enlarge this screen and maybe move this up. That way I can kind of have more of the stuff I was doing in view, and I take a screenshot. Great. So I'm going to minimize the screen again and move on to page 4. So page 4 is, so that was exercise 1, now we're in exercise 2, so managing virtual hard disks. So even though all of what we're doing is in a virtual enclosed environment, they want you to think that these machines are physical machines at whatever company you're working at. So now, even though the environment hasn't changed, we're going to be working on virtual hard disks, which are essentially the same storage devices as what we've been working on, but they're virtualized, which can get confusing when you're already working on a virtual environment. But nonetheless, I'm sure they're going to have us get into Hyper-V. So let's go into what machine do they want us to be in. So PLAB DMO1. Okay, so they want us to get Powershell open. So let's get Powershell. Do they want an admin PowerShell? So they do. So just right click it, do run as administrator. Alright, so PowerShell's open. Oh, okay, so they want us to enter in this huge text of command. So I am just going to clipboard this because I do not feel like writing this. And paste that. Okay, so press enter. So that command is going to create a new virtual hard disk. And it just does it for you. We don't have to go through the wizard. So this virtual hard disk is taking drive letter E. It has about 5 gigs of space on it. It uses the NTFS file system and it's healthy. It's on. Great. So step 3 is just wait for the virtual hard disk to be created. We already did it. So step 4, confirm that it's good. It is. Okay, that's all they want. Okay, so that's task 1. Task 1 is writing this huge command. Or if you use my shortcut of just going to menu, clipboard, and then pasting it, so Control V this into here, press send twice, and then before you left click anything, um, after you press send twice, move your cursor, right click in right next to where my cursor currently is, and it will just paste your command in there. So task 2, they want you to manage the hard disk, the virtual hard disk that you just created. So we're still inside of PowerShell. They want you to type in this other command, which is going to verify the system properties of the virtual hard disk that we created. So same thing. I'm not typing this. I'm gonna clipboard this and then paste it in. Okay, so this just gives you more in-depth information on what we just created, our virtual hard disk, and they want you, for step 2, they want you to type in another command, which is system administration about the D drive is displayed. Where is it? Okay, so the path, yeah. To change some of the properties of a virtual hard disk, it must be dismounted first. So now we're going to dismount a separate um, virtual hard drive, not the one we created, it's a separate one, so that we can change some of its properties. So to do that, we have to dismount it. So that's a whole nother command that we have to do in PowerShell. So just going to copy this in. Okay, so it doesn't give you a prompt that it dismounted. So for the next one, now that it's dismounted, we're going to convert that hard drive to a virtual disk type, to a VHDX virtual disk type. Okay, because currently it's a VHD. So we will just do we have to enter in this command, so I'm just going to clipboard that again. Just enter. Did it work? Okay, it is. Sorry. It was just, it hung there for a second. So it converted briefly. The convert status will briefly appear on the screen. So on the next prompt, we'll collect system information about the disk that we just converted by typing this command. Okay, so now if we kind of compare it with the original command that showed us information on the engineering.vhd, we could see that it was dismounted and then it was changed to a .vhdx, which is the format, the VHD format of that specific virtual hard drive. It still remains dynamic for the type. The file size did change because the format of the drive was changed. Doesn't mean that there's more stuff in it. It just means that it's taken up a different amount of space because of the file type. And the rest is relatively the same. The number was removed. That's fine. Yeah, okay. So let's go to step 6, which is observe. Okay, so that's what we just did. So step 7, on the next prompt to optimize the newly created virtual hard disk, type the following command. So where's my cursor? Okay. Just gonna press enter. So now it's optimizing it. And step 8, please wait for the virtual hard disk to be optimized. Since the virtual hard drive is a small file, the optimization will be relatively quick. And now we have to remount the virtual hard disk now that we've made all changes, because it's still currently dismounted. Let's press enter. So now it's remounted, and I'm sure no system confirmation was given. They don't want us to do the check again. Okay, but let's do it anyways. I want to see if it changes the file size since we optimized it. So where was that? I believe the command was right here. Okay. Alright, so it's like 10:48. Then up here it's about, no, it's about the same. What were changes made? Oh, it was given a number here, and then disk number here. But that may have been from the remount of the disk. Okay, it's fine. They do want us to take a screenshot towards the end, so that's what I'll do. And then go to the next page. Okay, so that's it for the hands-on section of the assignment. So now it's just like the typical questions. So let's briefly see if we can go through them. These questions are always about what we just did. So like this one, when you execute the following command in PowerShell. So for disk 3, remember we were working with disk 3 in I think the first part of the lab. We wanted to remove the read-only permission on the disk. So to do that, we had to type in the disk we want to manipulate is read-only, and then change it to false so that it turns it off instead of leaving it on. So that would be the answer. So yep, correct. So for question 5, you have a server with multiple disks but with no RAID configured. You want to mirror the C drive with the D drive. Which of the following RAID would you configure? So for this, this is a little bit less on what we did in the lab. Yes, we did configure RAID for certain parts, for certain partitions of the drive, but they're kind of asking you which RAID should you use. And we only used RAID 0 and RAID 5, but it could be something else. I know they give you 0 and 5 here. So maybe check your textbook for this one. So for number 6, which type of RAID provides fault tolerance through the use of parity information spread across the member disk volumes? Another one that kind of pertains to the textbook's reading. So do that. Question 7, identify the output of the following PowerShell command. Okay, so we did use this one. So this is actually on my current PowerShell window. So get VHD C engineering .vhd. So this is going to verify system. Uh, I would say it does this. Yeah, okay. Because it gives you a list of like the system properties. It doesn't create anything because it's just querying this specific virtual hard disk. And it doesn't link anything, it's just giving you information on it. So that's why I picked the last one. And then let's go to question 3, which was, let's see, what could be the primary reason to implement resilient file system on a Windows 2019 server instead of a NTFS file system? So yeah, this is another question that kind of pertains to the chapter reading, as to why you would prefer NTFS or why you would prefer REFS to one another. So these 3 questions are like reading questions. The other 2 were based on what we just did in the lab. And then obviously 2 questions are just screenshots. And then you would just do submit report, and then that's it for this week. That is the assignment. Once again, we just were creating and manipulating physical hard drives and virtual hard drives. Now, we didn't necessarily see the virtual hard drive. We created it in PowerShell and then we manipulated it from PowerShell. But you could also do that another way. We just didn't do it in the specific lab. And we kind of just mostly did most of our work on PLAB DMO1. And we have our list of hard drives right here. So, yeah. So I will see you guys in week 9. So do expect to see that content around Saturday, Sunday. And if you guys have questions, feel free to reach out to me via email, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can. Alright, I'll see you guys next week.